Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show, the madhouse for film freaks and film fans of all types. I'm your host, Brian Coddington, joined by my fellow co-host and filmmaker, John Wilscroft.
Let's do this Cockadoodie show, Mr. Man.
Let's do this Cockadoodie show. That's not why my lower third coming up? I didn't want my lower third. What the fuck, man? Come on. Yes, we are back a little bit late on this one, but I'm glad we got to it. This week, we are finishing up Stephen King month. Sorry, it's been a long time. What, John, about like almost 2 months at this point?
It's Stephen King month and a half month. Yeah, it's
Stephen King month and a half month.
And yeah, we got like 15% through recording this. We had to scrap it. We're back now, so we're starting over here. But I would, as I made the joke, and I'm gonna recycle it for this one, is that in the time it took us to get through Stephen King month, Stephen King probably released 7 novels.
Just 7? Just 7?
Well, he's getting older, you know. Yeah,
it's hard to make more than 7 novels in a month if you're Stephen King, right? Like it's kind of difficult,
especially when you're not dealing with the news candy anymore.
yeah, or the Annie Wilkes in the case of this film. But this is a good movie. Like this is an oddball film, Misery, because of the fact that, in my opinion, it's just it doesn't have supernatural elements. No, we're going to talk a bit more about this. But John, what was this the first time you had seen Misery before we get rolling?
Oh God, no. This is actually not just one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations, but one of my favorite films. And while I love all horror, you know, because there's so many different ones, and I do love vampires, werewolves, zombies. Like my true bread and butter when it comes to horror is like horror that's grounded in reality, like this could actually happen. And so that's one of the things I love so much about this. As a matter of fact, usually just to kind of deal with the depression that is January, Christine and I will watch a trilogy of snowbound horror where we watch this, The Thing, and The Shining. So two Stephen Kings in there. I watch this.
That'll make you really have the winter blues at that point.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it can't be as bad as fucking aliens taking over people that are in your house. Can't be as bad as being injured and ending up snowbound and some crazy fan smacking your legs together. Can't be that bad. It's just winter.
Yeah, and I will say that this is one of the few really great Stephen King adaptations. I don't know if that says something about Stephen or the budget / people making his movies, but like I could count so many average to terrible Stephen King adaptations, but really only probably on one hand can I count the really great ones, and this is one of the really great ones.
Yeah, no, this is one of those ones, and like for me, I first saw this, and people are gonna be like, "What the fuck, Brian?" I saw this movie, I think, roughly when I was around 6 or 7. Like that was one of the first times. I blame HBO. I've said this before in this podcast. HBO ruined me because of how much stuff was on there, and Misery was one of those movies that was on there, and I just loved it because of how terror-inducing it is. And John, you spoke to it's grounded in reality, and like it's not necessarily a monster. And as you dig deeper into Stephen King's work, you dig deeper into some of the adaptations, they kind of feel a little hokey to some degree, especially when you compare it to something like this, which is very grounded. But before we get any further, I do want to give a little bit of synopsis. I'm pulling this directly from IMDb. I didn't write this. This is actually from Andrew Backhouse on IMDb because I love this actual synopsis.
Thanks,
so if
Andy.
that's handy. If you've never seen Misery before, first of all, this movie came out in 1990, and the summary from IMDb is as such. Best-selling novelist Paul Sheldon is on his way home from his Colorado hideaway after completing his latest book when he crashes his car in a freak blizzard. Paul is critically injured, but is rescued by former nurse Annie Wilkes, Paul's #1 fan. who takes Paul back to her remote house in the mountains without bothering to tell anybody. Unfortunately for Paul, Annie is also a head case when she discovers that Paul has killed off the heroine in her favorite novels. Her reaction leaves Paul shattered, literally. You see why, like, I love that summary. That's great. I was like, I can't write anything better than that. That's awesome.
A little wink there at the end. They're like, they knew what they were doing.
Yeah. Oh no, I know. I was like, why is this one the one at the top of IMDb's entry? I'm like, oh, that's right, because it's got the double entendre. you know. So, John, just kind of starting off with this film, do you believe that Misery is Stephen King's most autobiographical film? Because this feels really like Stephen King's like getting off a load of his own personal baggage and stuff in this film.
I really do, but possibly for different reasons than you're even referring to, the fact that the main character is an author and how, deal with fans and having to write certain things. Stephen King, this isn't just me speculating. Stephen King has come out and said that Annie Wilkes is a metaphor for his cocaine addiction.
Yeah.
And yeah. So like, when you feel completely trapped by your addiction to cocaine, you can't do anything else. Your entire life revolves around what it wants. So yeah, he used a human representation to kind of lay out all of the neuroses and issues that he went through when he was just like absolutely pound town in that nose candy.
Well, even if you look at even the stuff that he does before he even meets Annie, like the fact that he has a specific ritual associated with every time that he completes a book. He has a cigarette, he has his alcohol, and even the fact that he goes to a specific place. Like, those are things that people who have an addiction, they have to do. There's a ritual to all of it. Wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there are some people too that it's that even if they aren't addicts, like there is like they are ritual based. Sidney Crosby of the Pittsburgh Penguins, he does the same warm up every single game, does exactly the same thing every time because he's superstitious that way. So it's common for people to need to have that routine to kind of keep them grounded.
Yeah. But like, where I kind of find it autobiographical outside of the substance abuse, I think that is absolutely true, is just the fact that it is an author of note who's written something and a series of something that have amassed a massive fandom. And he's basically known for just that one thing and being pigeonholed into just that one thing and dealing with fans who see him as kind of like the messiah of the genre. And like, that's Stephen King. That's him to a T. Everyone views him, at least they have for a period of time. Like, I'd say from the 70s up until, maybe even like the late 90s, viewed as kind of like the de facto godfather of the horror genre, especially in literature. And, Paul Sheldon is kind of the de facto godfather of, what would you call these, like romance novels? Because that's what I kind of thought they were.
Romance thrillers, yeah. Like, I don't know if we'd call them erotic thrillers. I don't know if they're supposed to be like Fabio type books. That
I kind of always thought these were Fabio like romance novels, like not 50 Shades of Grey level or anything like that, but just like the ones you would see right next to the Weekly World News. I mean, in the supermarket,
right.
Check out. There's Weekly World News, there's Star, and then there is Fabio, at least 5 Fabio dime store novels.
Yeah. And Brian and I are, we're 80s babies. So like when we grew up, like, yeah, it was like, oh, Stephen King has a new book out. Like, oh yeah, like Stephen King was rock and roll. He was Elvis of like the pulp horror book thing, unless you were real little and that was R.L. Stein, So
well,
it's
not
like,
only that, John, but like the marketing material for Hellraiser was a quote from Stephen King. Like, It was, I have seen the future of horror. His name is Clive Barker. Stephen King. Marketing materials. That was 1987. You know what I mean? Like, so yes, Stephen King was the godfather of horror, except for R.L. Stine.
Yeah. And, you know, and I mean, there were tons of different types of authors for that, but that's like, but I wasn't reading John Grisham or well, a little bit Michael Crichton, but, you know, I wasn't reading lawyer books. Like, you know, so there were people of a generation who was like, oh, new John Grisham books out. You know, wasn't me. Yeah, it was me. It was like Stephen King, you know, like I got to read the new Stephen King. It almost felt like naughty because, you know, like you're 10 years old and you're reading it and you like, you think like you're getting away with something, you know?
Well, you get to that one chapter in It that is just like, oh, wow, I shouldn't be reading this.
All aboard the Bev train.
If you've read the novel It, you see that there is a weird sexual thing that Stephen King put into the novel. I still don't know why the fuck it's there. He said some weird shit like, oh, yeah, when you have sex, you lose your childhood innocence. So let me go have kids do that. And I still think it's fucked up and bizarro and inappropriate.
Seven Boys Cream Pie Bev.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Or
it's just
Boys,
really,
I don't know.
really fucked up.
Well,
and I'm glad that no one in any movie adaptation has even tried to put that in there because it's screwed up.
I dare them. I fucking dare. But
don't put that out there, John.
And he is obsessed with describing penises because, like, in the book, like, apparently Ben has an abnormally large penis and it hurts Bev. And I'm like, why?
Yeah, why are you spending time?
Why are you doing this? You know, but
why do you have Post-it notes about that? Like, because you know you did. You had Post-it notes about this particular scene in the book. This episode, John, isn't about the weird sex scene in the book.
But see, I can imagine his pre-notes being like, all right, and then there's this boy, his penis is 3 inches. There's this boy, his penis is 7 inches. He's a Pisces.
Isn't that what J.R.R. Martin does with like the Game of Thrones books?
And he whipped out his wiener, ding, 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 ding.
I think South Park did a whole thing about big floppy dicks in Game of Thrones.
The pieces are coming. Yeah.
Oh shit. Well, I mean, it's, you know, it absolutely is, I think, an autobiographical film. And I think the core of this movie really has to say about fandom. And John, I'm curious your thoughts on how fandom in this movie is presented.
Well, one thing that I love so much about Annie Wilkes, and, you know, take what you will about Oscars and what that means. There's a reason that, you know, Kathy Bates walked away with the award for this, is that, like, she is, to me, more dangerous than, you know, somebody who is just normally, I guess, upfront evil in a movie, because she's so unpredictable that to me is what makes her so terrifying. You know, you don't know how her attitudes are going to change on a dime. You know, that type of person, we've all experienced them somewhere in our lives, whether they're family, friends, coworkers, what have you, where all of a sudden it's like they just out of nowhere just their eyes went black and they freaked the fuck out on me. So I think that's very fascinating. But, you know, I think of somebody like Selena, the famous pop star, who her number one fan became like her right hand lady, and she ends up killing her. You know, so it's like, this isn't just something that's so far fetched and out there. Like, there is proven history of this kind of thing. You know, stalkers or super fans that are dangerous.
Yeah, no, it's a thing where I don't think that people who aren't celebrities quite understand this. And I'm not trying to equate that John and I are celebrities by any stretch. We aren't. We aren't.
Hey, we're D- celebrities, Brian.
We're not even D-, John. Okay. Okay. To the 45 or 50 people who listen to us, we might be celebrities to them. And to them, I love you. Seriously, I do. But like, I don't think people quite get it. We look at celebrity and we see that they have everything, and that we almost get this feeling like, well, your status and everything makes you less human than me because I don't have access to all that stuff. But we lose sight of that. And I think that's where a lot of the stalking things is because people, these fans, almost feel like they have ownership over the person because they, what they make supports the fan emotionally and through entertainment. And Annie Wilkes is kind of like an extreme of that. And one thing I want to say is, you want to know why Kathy Bates won the Oscar for this? Is because she did it in a way that wasn't ridiculous, like John Travolta in The Fanatic, or Robert De Niro in The Fan.
Yeah. See, that would be a good double feature, like Misery and The Fanatic.
The Fanatic.
Like, just watch like a really great nuanced interpretation of this, and then watch John Travolta. Like the polar opposite, Well,
yeah, but like John Travolta, he comes off as deranged, but not in a way that you're just like, oh yes, this person, like you almost can feel a little bad for Annie Wilkes at times. Like you clearly can see that something is going on. John Travolta, you're just like, what the fuck are they doing? Like so bad. I don't think we ever did The Fanatic. Do we ever fully review The Fanatic? I don't think we did.
Not fully, no.
I think we talked about it as like a worst of the year.
Our worst movie, of the year list. Yeah.
But yeah, the toxic fandom in that's presented in this film, I really think now could be amplified by 1,000. And I'm curious, Sean, your thoughts on that. Like, do you think, like, with the fact that we now have celebrity on multiple levels, other than just like you're writing books or making movies or making TV shows, you're now like your whole life, it could be, become a celebrity through TikTok and Instagram and being an influencer and all this shit. And like how now that breeds, I think, a bit more toxicity because, it's on the internet.
Oh yeah. The internet absolutely changes everything. Like, I think of I think her name's Bella Ramsey, who is on the Last of Us show. And these, I guess, and I'm not trying to get political out there, but I guess since Trump's president now, like people feel emboldened to just be mindlessly cruel. And the things that people put out about her appearance, which, maybe just keep your opinions on somebody's appearance to yourself. Unless you want to make fun of Elon Musk's hair plugs, then go ahead. But but like just vicious things. This is like, you're not even discussing her acting ability or her character. You're just being cruel because you, in your opinion, deem her unattractive. And it's just like, the fuck is wrong, with people. We lived in a world where if I wanted to complain about the prequels, yeah, the internet was around, but it was until about Revenge of the Sith, we didn't really have high speed, so it was basically you just complaining on the schoolyard or, about the prequels not being as good as they were to your friends. Now with the internet, it just turns so toxic and vile and creepy.
Well, prequels were pretty vile too. Like, I mean, it wasn't as to the extent that it is now, but like there was some really nasty shit towards the actor who played Jar Jar Binks.
Oh, that's
in episode 1, and like it's really,
and little Jake Lloyd,
and like people forget. I really believe this, but people forget that the entertainment industry is an industry. Actors are working on their projects. It's work. Yeah. I know it's crazy to think of because you think like, oh, well, they get paid millions of dollars. Be honest with you, most of them don't. Okay? Most of them don't.
The grip's not getting $1 million. Yeah.
But even if we're just saying like people
players
from the camera. Yeah. We're saying people from the camera. Okay? These people are doing a job. Just like any job. Okay? And to attack anyone to that extent, to get personal, like that is another level of asshole that just goes beyond even just critiquing their work. I mean, on this podcast, there have been times that we have said some pretty horrible things, but we've never just blatantly said like, hey, this particular actor, here's a horrible thing directed especially at you. Okay, at least I don't think we have. I don't think we've done that.
I think it's if it's ever come, it's from when like certain people like Mel Gibson, they said horrible things,
Yeah,
and we
yeah.
call them out
You
on
got to
that.
open the door. You got to open the door. You got to meet us halfway.
I
For
know,
us
like,
to be able to attack you,
we're not
you
going,
gotta get
this
halfway.
person is ugly, this person is fat,
Yeah,
this person,
no,
we're not.
No, except for Neil Breen. All in fairness, I would never attack Neil Breen's like appearance.
Hey,
Okay,
it's okay
I've
though, because
said
Neil
his-
Breen's not a human being; he's an alien.
well, no, but I've attacked his films, and that's fair game. Okay,
Yeah.
But I just think it's important for fans to understand that we don't have ownership over these people. Okay. Yes, they made characters that you love or hate or whatever, but you don't have ownership over them. Okay. And you sure as hell have no fucking right to personally attack somebody based off of something like the way they look or how, just some personal shit that was completely unrelated to anything in their performance. You want to criticize someone's performance? Okay, fine. You have an opinion. Good for you. But to turn it into a level where it gets extremely toxic, that one ruins any sort of criticism that any like reputable person might have towards a film. Because I know, John, if you've seen this, but like film critique alone has come under fire, partially because of these assholes who feel like it's open season to attack a film or attack a person personally.
Well, Brian, the perfect example is the 2016 Ghostbusters film. Like,
yeah, we didn't like it.
We reviewed it. We didn't like it. And it had nothing to do with the hardworking ladies in the film.
No.
I don't care if the Ghostbusters are women. I don't care. And they were doing their best, but it just wasn't there on the page. It wasn't directed well. It wasn't edited that well. We were discussing that the film wasn't very good. It had nothing to do with the fact that they were women. But when people go out there and say, "There's a bunch of stupid broads and DIY and Mr. McCarthy's fat," it's just like you're ruining it because you're a disgusting, pathetic incel troll who's ruining legitimate critique for everyone else.
Yeah. No, that's my point. It's just like, understand that. Don't be a dick. But getting back to Misery. Okay, getting back to Misery, because this, honestly, we've been talking about Misery, but this, I think, is a core element of it. One of the things that one of the topics that, aside from just fandom, that I think is important to bring up is the fact that as fans of something, the argument becomes, do the fans have ownership and claim to a creative property that they themselves have attached themselves to? Or does the author? Because that's a big dynamic in this film, is that Paul Sheldon wants to get away from making Misery. He's decided, hey, I'm killing her the fuck off because I want to move on and do something else. I want to grow as an author. And Annie Wilkes, being a diehard fan of this, is unwilling to let that go. And when she's got Paul Sheldon literally on the slab, she sees it a point as like, I'm going to make sure you don't ruin my fictional thing that I've wrapped my entire self up to. So, John, I'm going to ask you this. Where does that connection lie at? Where does that line live at between what the fan has kind of attributed to and grasped onto, and where's the author's kind of responsibility at?
Well, that's kind of a scary thing when people, and there's a variety of different ways that this happens, but they base their entire personality off of like one character or one universe, and if everything that you live by is Star Trek or pro wrestling or James Bond or something, that if it's not to your specifications, you lash out, but there is nothing that I love, because I love Batman. I love, all these different
I was
characters.
waiting for you to say that.
Yeah. But like, I don't freak out over the 60s show, or if like the next The Batman, I would be disappointed if it was like, just say that they just made the worst movie ever and just kind of shit all over what they did with the first one. I would be disappointed, but I wouldn't lose my mind to the point where I wanted to hunt down the director, for God's sake. But I think there's an issue is that when somebody based their entire identity around one particular story, that it affects somebody so terribly if it's not what they wanted. That's a scary thing. And I worry about people that, Star Wars is my only existence, and if it's not exactly how I want it, I'm going to injure myself or something. It's like, calm down. It's just some stories about lightsabers. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I know for me, I think that there is almost like a dividing line, if you will, where like, I think here's the thing. I really believe that a lot of these fictional stories, a lot of these characters, a lot of these films, I think they have a positive impact on people by and large, for the most part. John, you mentioned Batman. I've mentioned this on this podcast multiple times. John, I think you're in the same boat as me. Batman in 1989 had a fundamental effect on myself as a kid. Okay. I was 4 years old at the time. I had never seen anything like it, and still have yet to see something that wows me to the level that 1989's Batman does. Where I mentioned, obviously Nosferatu from last year, Dune, obviously great films. Definitely ones that I'm like, I will want to see it again. But the, Batman from 1989 with Tim Burton, Michael Keaton, and, Jack Nicholson fundamentally affected me. Made me really look at cinema in a different way than I had ever seen, and made me appreciate the darker side of entertainment. Okay. Now, did I get pissed off when we got Joel Schumacher and we got a very bright, very like out there? At the time, no. At the time, I didn't know any better. But looking back now, I'll be like, yeah, not really my Batman. Not really what I want. Not really the same feeling. But I'm not going to start, John, as you said, like hunt down the director. I'm not going to do that, because, that moment of time, that story, that movie, whatever it is, it makes up who you are, but it's not the only thing that makes up who you are.
Speaking of like the like if I had run into as an adult Joel Schumacher before he passed, R.I.P., I would shake his hand and go, "Hey, big fan, Falling Down, great flick, thanks a lot for that." I wouldn't throw hot coffee in his face and be like, "You ruined my Batman, you son of a bitch."
No, I wouldn't do that. I'd be like, "What was?" My only thing is morbid curiosity. I'd be like, "What was the deal with Batman Forever? What was the deal with Batman Forever and Batman Robin? Just come on, just." And he would probably say the same thing. I was paid a shit ton of money to make this movie, and the toy people made it.
Yeah. Hasbro was really the director of this movie. Yeah,
you want to put blame on anyone? Blame Hasbro. But like, that's the thing is like, I really see it not so much with Batman. I see it more with Star Wars, Star Trek, and not to call those people out. I'm a Star Wars fan. I also love elements of Trek too. I wouldn't call myself a Trekkie, but I think like because those properties have gone on for generations, right? Everyone has kind of their own idea of how Star Wars should be. I'm going to pick on Star Wars because it's one I'm more familiar with and more of a fan of. They have an idea of how Star Wars should be. And so if it doesn't fit the fandom of how Star Wars should be because they made up stories in their heads, then they don't like it. And then they lash out.
Yeah.
And that's when we get to kind of like, John, what you were saying about the toxic fandom. Because what's on the screen or what's on the page or what's in the cartoon isn't matching up with what's in your brain.
Yeah.
And the thing is there's nothing that will ever match up with what's in your brain. Ever. That's why you just got to kind of take it as it goes. I was pissed off about the Rise of Skywalker. Listen to our back catalog. It's a good time. I was pissed off about it. I still am pissed off about it. It's not my Star Wars. But I realized that, you know what? I'm more than just my own fandom for Star Wars. That's part of me, yes. But I'm not going to grab hold of like Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams and hobble them until they get rid of Emperor Palpatine being in the fucking movie.
We're gonna human centipede you, motherfucker.
Yeah. Okay, you said that somehow he came back. You better explain why he came back, motherfucker. Okay, you're getting hobbled. Explain how Sith magic works. Yeah. It just I think there is a debate to be had about who has ownership, authors or fans. I think ultimately authors, since you birthed the thing, you can change it as you want. Take fans in consideration, obviously, but it's your world. You made it. Yeah. So I want to dive into a little bit of the characters. What do you think, John?
Let's do it. All right.
Let's do it. All right. So first of all, Paul Sheldon, played by the late great James Caan. Interesting character for him to play because it's so fucking against type. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, because he's usually, he's Sonny Corleone, or he's a tough guy. Like he plays, rough, gruff kind of guys. And this one, he's just kind of, cuckolded by
He's
Annie.
weak.
Yeah.
He's fucking weak. He is meek. He is at the behest of Annie Wilkes the entire time. And like, he's weak from the outset. Like literally the moment that we see him and he's in that car accident, he's pretty much at her whim of she can kill him anytime she wants. Like, we don't think that she's going to do that, but it's, as you said, it's Sonny Corleone literally hobbled.
Yeah. And I do feel real bad for James Caan while making this film, because these are 12, 14-hour day shoots, and almost all the time, except maybe to get up and stretch between takes or go take a piss or lunch, he just has to lie in bed all day. And he just said he was so fucking miserable to just have to lie there all day that like at night he would just booze his mind off, like to just kind of like get over it. And apparently one day he was so hungover and he was so bad, his performance was so terrible, that Rob Reiner initially lied to him and said, "Oh, we got the film processed and they fucked it up, so we're gonna have to reshoot those scenes." And later he found out that like it was all just a lie. It's just the dailies, he was just terrible. And when he found that out, he actually refunded the production for that entire lost day of filming because he felt so bad about costing a day's worth of loss.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I mean, I can't even imagine that. I mean, but yeah, you're right. Like he is literally he's in bed or in a wheelchair the entire time in this movie. And he's honestly in bed more often than in a wheelchair. But I love the fact that it's against type for James Caan.
Yeah.
And because you figure like this is 1990, so he had a little guest spot thing in Dick Tracy at the time, playing a gangster who gets blown up. But he's always played tough guys. He's always played these guys who can take charge and kind of, have their own destiny laid out for them and basically take control of it. And in this one, he is completely dependent on Annie Wilkes. And I think the best part about him is those moments where you get a glimmer of like, he's not going to take this shit anymore. Like when he burns the novel in front of her.
Yeah.
Like this is like to set this up. Okay. So earlier in the film, after Annie reads the last entry of the Misery series, okay, she like loses her fucking mind, okay, because she realizes that this is the end of the character that she has enveloped her entire personality in, okay. So she forces Paul to burn the only copy of his brand new novel.
Because as she states, he's like, "Oh, well, that won't mean anything." He's like bluffing because he's like, the publisher
Yeah.
has a copy of it and I got backups.
Bullshit.
And she's like, "I'm so obsessed with you. I saw you on like Carson or
Yeah.
something. And you say you only make one copy because you're super." He's like, "Motherfucker, this bitch knows everything about me."
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's his number one fan, John.
Yeah.
Okay. But like that's the thing is like there are fans out there who know all of the eccentricities of celebrities. Partially because the celebrity has said these things out in public. And there's always people who keep track of that stuff. So, but yeah, he is forced to light the novel that he had been writing, the thing that was going to take him away from doing these fucking misery books. He has to destroy it. And so it's awesome later in the movie when he's like finally ready to like turn the screw on Annie Wilkes. He's completed the novel, completed the new misery that Annie wants. And he's like, I've got the last couple pages right here. Whether or not misery lives or dies, who her father is, all that shit, it's in these pages right here. And he lights it on fire in front of her, basically say, fuck you, bitch. And it's a moment where like, that's the James Caan you see in like The Godfather, popping through just a little bit. And like, I think that it's smart on the casting of him, because I don't think you would have gotten that from another type of actor. Like I think they did have some other actors kind of in the works. Like I believe Kevin Kline and William Hurt were up for the role of Paul, and I don't think they would have worked.
Especially not Kevin Kline.
No. You have to have someone who's got a little bit of that like badass just there. But like the challenge is like, how do you control that to bring it out only when you have to? But yeah, Paul's an awesome character in this. And then of course we got Annie. What's there to say, John, about Annie?
Well, as I stated, not to sound like a broken record here, but like again, she is so terrifying because she can just flip a switch and go from caring to psycho, and again, if like literally, she came in as a mustache twirler and be like, I have you captured and I'm gonna torture you daily. I'm like, would not be as terrifying as somebody who like you don't know if she's gonna break into your room at like 3 a.m. and scream at you and threaten to shoot herself, and then the next day she makes you breakfast and goes, hope you slept well. And it's like, this is just unsettling because I don't know at any given moment what I'm gonna get.
Yeah, no, I love the fact that she goes from these different personalities. Like I honestly would say that she is, some sort of multiple personality disorder or something, or at least
Bipolar schizophrenic, I think.
Yeah, but either way, like how she comes across first as the most caring person. She rescued Paul from certain death and really is just there to nurse him back to health, to loving him, like romantically loving him, to then a full 180 of despising him for killing off her favorite character, to supporting him and being like a partner in rewriting the misery story, and then even to just being like almost a parental figure.
Yeah, it's
at
like
points.
some Freudian incestual things going on here.
Yes.
Like, Paul, I have to be your mother because you clearly don't know what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And even that moment where like she does like hobble him with the sledgehammer, immediately after that, she goes to, I love you. Like she's getting off on it.
Mm.
It's really fucking terrifying and unsettling, that performance. And it's fully understandable why she won an Academy Award for it, because I don't know anyone else who could pull that off. I mean, you had Lizzie Kaplan years later in Castle Rock, who played a younger version of Annie Wilkes. And don't get me wrong, I have nothing against Lizzie Kaplan. You didn't know about that, did you, John?
No.
Yeah. The show Castle Rock, that I think it was on like, I think it might have been on Hulu at one time.
Was it?
But
her time as like a nurse.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it's Castle Rock. That you're thinking of Ratchet, not Castle Rock. But Castle Rock takes place in like Stephen King's like universe of multiple films. So like there's like elements from Salem's Lot in there and that sort of thing. And I think there's even like Shawshank in there as well. But yeah, the second season, Lizzie Kaplan plays a young Annie Wilkes, and it's kind of like the prequel to Misery. And it, don't get me wrong, like she is great, but she's not Kathy Bates. and no one can be Kathy Bates as Annie Wilkes and have the ability to, on a dime, go from the most loving, caring person to the most terrifying fucking monster within the span of like 2 seconds. Like there's one scene in this film where she's like, her eyes are bugged out and she's like screaming at Paul. And I think it's going to be what the thumbnail for this episode is going to be on, where she's like calling him a dirty bird and all sorts of crazy shit. And the Cockadoodie car crap.
Yeah.
You know, that whole scene. It's fucking nuts how in that span of a couple seconds goes from normal conversation to batshit fucking Looney Tunes.
And what's so great about her character is that she doesn't want to swear. She wants to be proper. So it would be oddly less effective if she was saying, "You motherfucker, you cocksucker," but when she's saying Cockadoodie, but like it's almost humorous, but it makes it almost extra terrifying because it's so awkward at the same time. Like her feel the need for decorum while she's losing her mind.
Yeah, it's like in her head she's built up what a proper kind of person is, right? And what they say and what they don't say. And even she like criticizes what Paul puts in the novel that he's working on of all of the horrible language. He's like, no one would say that filth. And he's like, well, you don't understand. Like that's the way people talk in that. And like that sets her off. Which I gotta mention this, and this is one thing I think is important. I love how we're given just enough backstory into Annie Wilkes without it being full exposition.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think that, that is what makes this movie work even more than like, Paul hiding the pills so that he can use them later, or, trying to come up with all these different ways to get out. It's more, Paul's our protagonist, but we're really following Annie here and just learning more and more about her. It's the slow reveal of the backstory of Annie, and what we get that is kind of, I think, what keeps your focus and keeps your attention more than just Paul's attempt at escape.
I just go like, imagine if this was a modern film, because in a modern film you would have like 5 scenes where Paul or whoever's searching for Paul gets a hold of somebody and they're like, oh yeah, there was that crazy woman who like, was a nurse and she killed kids at a hospital. She was the dragon lady. Like you would have had those sort of conversations, and they kind of dull the terror, in my opinion, because I know why they're there. They're there to kind of fill us in as like, why is this woman like fucking batshit Looney Tunes? But like it almost seems more artful to have it played out in like these newspaper clippings that maybe call them like trophies, but Annie has collected them.
It really
she's almost proud.
Yeah, like Rob Reiner is almost doing his like channeling his inner Hitchcock here,
Yeah.
The slow tension reveal where, I even think about advertising for movies. I had seen, because I'm a theater kid. What do you want? I saw Wicked 3 times, on stage before I saw the movie. And I remember seeing advertisements for it where, Miss Marvel, the actress, I can't remember her name, is talking about her character, and they're showing clips of her turning on Alphabet at the end of the movie. I'm like, that's the reveal of the end of the movie. There are plenty of people who are going to go see this who have never seen Wicked, and you're giving away the ending, you stupid fucks,
Yeah, there's the whole idea of creating tension and revealing is pretty much marketing 101 nowadays when it comes to
Terminator Genesis, where they gave away that John Connor was
It's like, oh, John Connor, yeah, he's a robot now.
Yeah, what would have been a cool reveal
What?
if you watched the movie? Yeah.
What? What? Okay. Ah, okay. Um, now this leads to like the last character that I have in here. I didn't put the sheriff on here because honestly he's kind of
Well,
secondary.
a lot of like the sheriff and stuff is like you need something to break
Yeah.
away from the so you're not in the same location all the time. So let's go to the sheriff's office.
Well, the sheriff and his wife,
Yeah.
who just the wife just wants a piece of that sheriff.
But
The whole time she just wants to jump his bones.
well, big dick energy, man.
I guess so.
I hope
but-
you're not leaving out the best character in the movie.
Well, who's the best character in the movie?
Misery. The pig.
Oh, well, I was gonna say the best character in the movie is the setting, but sure, John, let's talk about Misery.
She's a cute pig, and
Oh yes, I thought you meant the character in the book. Well,
oh
yes,
no,
the pig.
I meant literally Misery the pig.
Misery the pig, also known as the Sunday roast and bacon. Oh yeah, but no, I was gonna say, I mean, you could say the setting of this movie is a character, which just like classic Stephen King, that's a common trope, right? You know, the Overlook Hotel was a character in The Shining. I really believe that Silver Creek, Colorado, is a character in this film.
And it's actually fucking fascinating that this doesn't take place in Maine. Stephen King, you're growing.
Either it's Maine or Colorado, John, one of the two.
Well, and it's like it's so brilliant too, yeah, because it's like this snowbound. No, it's a home, but let's call it a cabin. It sounds like better. Where at first, I mean, I'm sure you know the premise going into it. You know, you've read the synopsis or seen the Siskel and Ebert review. Like I'm saying, if you're living in 1990 and you haven't read the book, but there's plausible deniability at the end where she's like, or in the beginning rather, excuse me, where it's like, oh, the roads are down, but don't worry, I'm a nurse. I can take care of you until we can get an ambulance up here. And oh, you want to call your agent? Well, the phone lines are down because the snow. You know, it's crazy out there. So there's plausible deniability of Annie at first. And so that kind of builds an interesting universe in and of itself. On top of like, I mean, obviously the art direction inside the cabin's great too, but just that whole outdoor, snowbound kind of situation. It's kind of interesting that they had to do 1990s way of what they do now, where every film you have to write out why they can't just use their cell phones,
Yeah, no, but I mean, you have to do that nowadays because, as you said, like, there's always going to be some jerk in the audience, probably myself or John, who goes, "Use your fucking phone, moron! Like, where's your phone at?" But yeah, in the 90s, snow could take out your phone lines, so it did make sense. And if you had never seen this film before, never read the book, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, well, Annie's seems like a decent character." But what I love about the setting in this is that, it's you almost feel claustrophobic at times because of the setting, because you're in the mountains, right? You're covered by snow on all ends. It's desolate. You get the feeling that like Paul could be killed at any moment, and there's no way in hell that anyone would know because of that setting. And had you moved the setting to Maine, or you moved it to a place that wasn't mountainous and wasn't snow covered, I don't think it would be nearly as strong, because you always had the threat of like, oh, well, you're in civilization, so somebody's going to figure something out. Somebody's going to ask that question. But because you've moved it to this very remote and very like isolated area in middle of winter, you could die and no one would know.
Well, I mean, I saw this, one of those like I shouldn't have survived things. Brief sidebar where it was this lady, her car broke down in Minnesota, and they said it was one of those days where even if you are properly clothed for the weather, if you spend more than 20 minutes outside, you will die of exposure. And that's when I said to myself, we should not live in Minnesota. That is what's called uninhabitable. But
I mean, I was thinking, I lived in Colorado for a time, and it's very real that and I didn't live in the mountains. I lived in the suburbs of Denver, and it is very real that, yeah, when winter gets bad, if you are not wearing the proper clothes and you're outside and it's below zero and you might get upwards of, 10 feet of snow, that you can get frostbite. I remember my mom literally telling me, like, oh, be careful, only be out for like 10 minutes, because any longer than that, you start getting frostbite. So yeah, it's a real thing. I'm getting the feeling that Stephen King thinks that Colorado is hell. I'm literally getting that feeling, like, as I'm talking about it, I'm like, he set The Shining there. He set like this there. It's like, maybe he's really thinking that it's hell.
Well, and like that ratchets the fear too, because it's one of those situations where anytime Annie takes her car and goes into town, you know, the easiest explanation would be like, oh, if his legs are strong enough now, maybe he can try to run or briskly walk and get out of there. But it's like where he's at, there's no way that even if he found some of her clothes that fit and he bundled up as well as he could, he's on foot, injured. He's gonna die of exposure, unless he can get her car keys.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, is you don't know. Like, even though, like, I know the first time I saw this as a kid, I was like, oh, is this going to be how he gets out? But yeah, like, you don't think about the fact that it's in the middle of fucking winter, you know?
In the
Yeah,
in the middle of nowhere.
In the middle of nowhere, and no one knows he's there, and no one's looking for him. At least he doesn't think anyone's looking for him. So yeah, it's fucking terrifying, and I really believe that, like, the setting is a character. Now, it wouldn't be a discussion of misery if we didn't talk a good bit about the most famous scene from this movie, which is, of course, the hobbling scene.
Be your sledgehammer.
Before we go into hard details, to watch.
I mean, I love it. Like, I'm a sick pervert though, and I love that kind of.
We're both sick.
I just want to give a little bit of background in terms of the novel and the changes made.
Okay.
Which I think is fascinating, that it was in the novel, it's an axe and she chops his feet off at the ankle. And so in this one, she uses a sledgehammer. In the movie The Shining, Jack Nicholson uses an axe. In the book, it's a croquet mallet, which I know is not the same thing as the sledgehammer, but it's interesting. Two different directors changed the weapon to the opposite. But Rob Reiner's decision was that he did not want to leave James Caan's character permanently disabled. Like you cut off someone's feet, and they're permanently
They're not getting
disabled.
their feet back on.
Yeah. In fact, Misery the Pig's probably eating them feet.
There's no like, oh, well, we're gonna see him wiggle his toes later. No, you're not. Those feet are gone.
He'll get bionic feet like Luke in Empire when he got his new
and
hand.
they'll like little droid will like tap it and he'll see them wiggle and he'll be like, oh, look at that, they're good now.
Everybody wanted the axe, but yeah, Rob Reiner was like, no, we got to give him the ability to, like, walk with a cane at the end of the movie. But
I mean, let's be honest here, he's permanently gonna be walking with a cane.
Oh yeah, he's
forever.
He's not going to be running a marathon ever again.
Yeah. And honestly, he might wish that he lost his feet. Okay, because he's going to be feeling pain forever.
Which I think that it was the correct choice, because, like, unless you are an unfortunate person who has had a limb severed, which there are people out there, and I'm sorry if you're one of the listeners who had that happen, it's outside, I think, our understanding, if you haven't lived that experience, where even if you've never had a bone shattered, like, you've been hit like on the wrist or ankle in a hard way, and like, oh god, how much it hurts, even if you just sprained something, or just you got black and blue. So you can rationalize watching his ankles just get shattered by a sledgehammer. And so I think that the fact that you can wrap your head around that more easily than an axe severing a limb, I think makes it even more scary.
Oh yeah, no, I know that even when watching this for this episode, I cringed at that scene. Like I was like, oh God, like just because, yeah, you're right, John. Like you can imagine the pain because you have some reference to it. That's in
Mm.
essence what you're saying is there's
Yeah.
some reference to it. We've all had some injury, like me, knock on wood, I've never broken a bone before. But I know I've been hit pretty damn hard on places. I've injured myself pretty damn hard that I can imagine that pain turned up to like an 11. and that's kind of what the hobbling scene is. What drives me nuts about this scene is in a good way, by the way, not a bad way, is how they edit this scene, because they only give you just a little bit of seeing the foot like knock. Like I'm doing this for our video audience. It literally knocks away as the sledgehammer comes in, and then you immediately cut to James Caan's face in pure agony, and like just John said, you are feeling it.
Yeah. Imagine if you haven't seen the movie, snapping a piece of celery.
Yeah, or carrot.
Yeah.
Like a carrot. I like, imagine if you took a carrot or a pencil and you just snapped it forward. That's literally the hobbling scene, but it's both feet. And it's after this poor guy has recovered just a little bit. So he's like, he can walk. But she makes sure that he can't anymore.
And that's what's so great about having great actors and a great production crew, because I hate to knock on, independent, no budget filmmakers that I see sometimes, but I'll go to something where they're film festival, and I'll see these people who are not professionally trained actors, and it'll be a scene where they're being tortured or something, and they'll get like a finger cut off, and and they'll do like, the special effects guy did a great job where it's like, oh, it looks like a real finger and real blood, but then while they're talking later, you can tell the actor forgot that they're supposed to be in pain. Where you don't feel that with James Caan. You feel what he feels, because
Yeah, you feel that man's pain.
he doesn't
You are
always,
feeling it.
as a professional actor, he doesn't just start talking to Annie and forgetting like, oh yeah, my ankle has been shattered.
No. If you're in that much pain, you're not able to talk.
Yeah.
Because of how extreme that pain is, and it's both legs, and she's still doing it. Like that's the thing, is the one foot goes, and then she's like, you think, oh yeah, we're stopped there. No, she does the other one too, just for good measure, and it's so good, and it's so like cringeworthy. You could be a massive gore fan, and you will still be like, oh, you'll
Yeah.
look away because of it. But I love it. I absolutely love it. I want to move on to some reviews.
Oh boy.
Because
Okay.
John, I've got some. John, you haven't seen these, right?
Nope.
Okay,
Even
so it is
like,
review time.
we are telling everybody, just for complete transparency, this is our second time recording. Something weird happened last time, and before Brian was setting up the show, and he's like, pretend you haven't seen these reviews, and I'm like, no, I don't want to. So I was looking down.
He literally didn't look at the reviews.
I looked down because I didn't want to see him even then, even though they were right there on the screen.
Yeah. So these, if you're unfamiliar, if you're the first time listener, hey, thanks for being here. If you're unfamiliar, this is usually where I pull reviews from Letterboxd of the movie that we are reviewing, and we talk about them. Usually I find some really goofy ones. This one was kind of hard to find bad ones for understandable reasons.
Yeah, it would be
It's a good
it would
movie.
be probably weird takes, like, I didn't like that there wasn't a dog in the movie, 1 star. It's like, okay.
There was a
whatever.
pig.
Yeah,
Fuck
there's a
you
pig.
then.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go to review number 1. When a crazed fan holding their idol hostage is more scary than a demonic clown, that's when you realize Stephen King should stick to more realistic horror. Plus, it's like King knew this story would age like fine wine. That's honestly very unsettling. Yeah.
Interesting take. Yeah, I look, I like that Stephen King has an eclectic group of stories. So, I mean, yeah, I'll take my Misery with my Tommy knockers and my Stand By Me with my It. So I'm glad that he does all kinds of stories, but yeah, this is, to me, is much more terrifying than It. And I've seen the miniseries, the 2 movies, and I read the book, and I never felt that it was and remotely as scary as this was.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat. I I've always liked Stephen King, his film, the film work that he's done, just because I'm not a gigantic reader. Shock, horror, disgust, I know. But I will say that I've I really love the grounded horror he does more. If I had to pick one or the other, if you say, okay, Brian, do you want Christine, or do you want The Shining, or Carrie, or can I give you something more attuned to like Misery? I'm going to lean more towards Misery. And that's just because like this feels real. This feels like you would hear it on the news. Like that's something like this happened to a famous person. It feels more real, which for me, if it's more real, that means it's probably more scary.
Well, also, I think that some of his stuff that is more grounded in reality, that's still in a supernatural sense, it also can tend to be, much scarier. Where it's like, I would say Carrie and the Dead Zone, those are about, yes, they have telekinetic or mind reading abilities, but like Carrie is just more grounded in, somebody being tortured at home and school. And the Dead Zone is about, the fear of a megalomaniacal, person running amok and having complete control over our nukes. And what do you do when that happens? Can't imagine where Stephen King got that idea. But and so like even those are still based on supernatural things. Like to me, they're much more terrifying than Tommy Knockers or Dreamcatcher.
Yeah, well, it's always a matter, and where I think King really works well is when he's got the reality thing, right? Like we've all been bullied. We've all wondered, okay, what would we do if, say, our kid died and we want to see them again? We've all wondered, like, what would we do if we had the ability to see the future? Like we've all had that, but like it's always, what if? Like,
Yeah.
what if you're the bully teen and you had a means of getting revenge? What if you could see the future? What if you could bring your dead loved ones back to life? What happens next? And that's always been his strength, is the what if side of things. And, this one, Misery, is more, what if a fan was obsessed with an author and had that author dead to rights and was crazy? Like, what would happen next?
Well, even just Stephen King, even something that's not a horror movie, like I find it terrifying in Shawshank Redemption. It's not a horror movie, or not, was not a horror short. Is these guys just Andy Dufresne refusing to play the game of these like psychotic rapists in the prison, and him having to go through just being violently assaulted and raped by these guys. I'm like, that's terrifying. That's more terrifying than the clown turning into a werewolf because Richie likes horror movies,
Well, even with that, it's what if you're wrongly accused of murder?
Yeah. And you have to go through hell because
and you have to go through hell. Like how, what do you do if you, so like, I love that he does that. But I do think that Misery is his most grounded horror.
Yeah.
Like that's in my opinion his most grounded. And I really do believe it's most autobiographical. All right. So let's go to review number 2. What an excellent prequel to Elf.
Yes. I thank you.
Yeah, oh my God.
I would love, see, unfortunately, James Caan,
Walter Dobbs. But how did you get to where you were? Well, let me tell you something.
I used to write these misery novels.
I used to be known as a man named Paul Sheldon, but then this crazy woman like nearly broke me. So like witness protection came and gave me the name of Walter Hobbs.
And I thought the worst thing is that I abandoned my girlfriend I knocked up in college.
No,
but no, it was this, and hopefully the baby wasn't never born and ended up becoming an elf at the North Pole.
Or what if it was that Annie Wilkes was like a friend of the woman that Walter Hobbs knocked up in college?
Yes, yeah. He had, she had complications with the birth, and
Yes.
almost like bled out. And Annie like
And he
sewed her
was
up
there.
and yeah, took care of her. Yeah.
Oh my God, we've just made a universe. Telling you they're the same person. Same person. So good. So good. All right, let's go to review number 3. A great way to remember James Caan since it showcases his abilities in a role totally unlike the kind he usually played. And the demented chemistry between he and Kathy Bates is what really makes this work. That and the special ruthless brutality only thrillers and horror movies made by comedy people can have. That's funny to mention. Rob Reiner, comedy person.
I mean, yeah, I mean, he's an artist though. You know, it's like Jim Carrey can do serious movies and Robert De Niro can do comedy. It's like, you know, they have layers, guys, you know.
Yeah, but it's a thing where we don't normally associate Rob Reiner with horror.
Right.
Like, didn't
He's
Rob Reiner?
meathead. Yeah.
Yeah, didn't he do Princess Bride and didn't he do like
Spinal Tap.
Spinal? Yeah, he did Spinal Tap. Didn't he do When Harry Met Sally?
Yep. And I mean, and
Yeah.
he's Meathead from All in the Family.
Yeah, he's Meathead from All in the Family. So like, you don't connect him as a guy who can tell this terrifying story. But I would honestly almost imagine that he was bringing a lot of his own stuff too to this film. You know, his own, dealings with fandom and dealings with like celebrity as well. Because you have to bring it to him. But good review. All right, let's go to review number 4. So much pain and suffering could have been alleviated by Annie Wilkes discovering fan fiction. Yeah.
Hey, there's no
Not
Reddit
wrong.
back in 1990.
Oh no, I guarantee you there was fan fiction back then.
Oh,
it just
yeah,
wasn't it wasn't online.
Yeah, it was like, you know, what they call like when before the internet, like if you wanted to watch like certain matches, the wrestling matches, they called it tape trading. You know, like you got a VHS copy of matches you never would have seen otherwise. Like, yeah, it would be like fan fiction book trading. Like, oh, you got to read this here. My cousin's best friend gave this to me. You got to read it. You know.
Yeah, but I mean, all Annie would have had to have done was created a Misery like book club, and then her and all the fans of Misery could have just traded different fanfics amongst each other, and they would have been fine. And she, Misery would have died, but yeah, she would have lived on in her fan fiction. Isn't that what people did with Twilight? And that's how we got 50 Shades of Grey?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Anastasia Seal and whatever the guy's name is, like
Grey is, yeah.
Oh yeah, Gray, whatever his first name is, yeah.
Yeah, just devoid, horrible boss man, Grey. I had to review that one with the Silver Lions playlist, guys. Okay.
Yeah, I'm so heartbroken. I missed that one.
Yeah, you missed that one, asshole. Oh, so bad. All right. Well, to wrap up this film, what are your final thoughts, John, on movie Misery?
You know, I do like that it is a somewhat of a departure for King. We don't often get things that are really grounded for him. Yeah, unless it's sometimes like in his short stories, like, what was it? It was the short story Betty Page in the Shawshank Redemption. I can't remember. I'm forgetting now which the first poster he had in his place. You get those kind of things, or there are things like Dolores Claiborne and Bag of Bones. Like you do have some ones that don't have any supernatural things on them, but at this time in his writing, and obviously he wrote this many years before this came out, but I've looked up Stephen King's book writing list of like when each Carrie, and then the werewolf one or the vampire one that Salem's Lot, and then onward and so on, the order in which he writes these, and they really were so many at the time based on something supernatural or otherworldly, and this is one of the first times he kind of broke away from that, and I think that was a really great thing for him, because this is one of his not just best film adaptations, but it's one of his best books. And so As I mentioned at the top of the show, I love my horror in terms of for feeling fear grounded in some level of reality. And so yeah, that's what really gets me with this story. But as I told everybody, I also watch it with a movie about aliens hiding inside human bodies and a haunted hotel. So, it's like there's a buffet of horror for you.
Yeah. No, I love the fact that this is King's most personal and autobiographical story. Like I really, because like you almost, if you've ever like if you ever like really ascribe yourself to, say, an author or creator or a filmmaker, very rarely do you ever get to like get a peek inside of their brain, right? So when you do, like, I really believe like Misery is like getting a peek inside of Stephen King's mind. It really is a treat, and you can see that there's a lot of things going on in his mind through this story. You know, I think he absolutely viewed Annie Wilkes as the dual role of his substance abuse, being kind of controlled by it and being beaten down by it, as well as being pigeonholed as only one type of author. And that struggle of, maybe I want to break out from doing scary fucking books all the time. And I honestly think this is a kind of a refreshing way from, the Maximum Overdrive version of King that I want to forget about. Personally, I really do want to forget about that one. But, just echoing a lot of your sentiments, John, I love that it's grounded. I love that it is a pure, terrifying story that really still resonates today. Like, we are still seeing fans who wrap themselves up in their fandom and take it way too fucking seriously. And there have been incidences of stalking, of attacks against celebrities and authors and creative people by fans of their work.
Mark David Chapman killed John Lennon.
So it's a very real fear that I think a lot of celebrities do carry with them, and like it's put on display in this film. And it's also a thing, like, I love the ending of this because, Paul gets out of the cabin. He ends up killing Annie Wilkes, but she's still there. Like, she never will be gone. And I think that's something that when you're in a situation like this, yeah, you might survive, but you kind of still hold on to that fear, terror around every corner, But great film. Great film. Definitely check this one out if you haven't seen it.
Brian, before we wrap this entire episode up, and we did many moons ago, we did Stephen King adaptations as an episode, so check that out in the archives. But it's been a while since we've done that one. I want to I should have presented this to you before. I'm gonna put you on the spot. What's your Mount Rushmore of Stephen King film adaptations? I can give mine first.
Unprepared. Yeah, go ahead and give yours first, because I am unprepared. I'm unprepared, John. What the fuck?
Except for the last one I'll mention, which I think is the greatest adaptation. These other three are in no particular order. So I have The Shining, Stand By Me, Misery, and easily, hands down, the greatest Stephen King adaptation of all time, Dreamcatcher. No, I'm just kidding. Shawshank Redemption. So
I kind of figured as much.
Yeah.
I think for myself, I would probably have to put Misery, Pet Sematary, Carrie, and probably Shawshank. Those four would be the ones I would put on my Mount Rushmore. Shawshank is an all-around awesome film. Like, it is a great fucking film that doesn't have any real horror at all in it, but it's just so fucking good.
Yeah.
It's just so fucking good. So there's a reason why it's on a lot of people's like top 10 greatest films of all time, because it's so fucking good.
Well, that's amazing. In 1994, like the Best Picture run, it's like Pulp Fiction and Shawshank, it's like, do we vote for a groundbreaking out of nowhere masterpiece or a film that's just plain perfect? No, let's go with Forrest Gump instead. Yeah.
Forrest Gump's good too, John. I can't hate.
it.
I like
Yeah.
Forrest Gump. I always. 94 was a good year for film. Okay, let's be honest here.
And the sleeper in the whole group, Quiz Show, that movie's fucking great too.
That's a great film too. That's gonna be an episode talking about 94, 94's Oscar run, because that was a banger of a award season.
Ed Wood should have been nominated over 4 Weddings and a Funeral. There, I said it.
100%.
Yeah,
absolutely. Could have told you that one. All right. Well, with that said, this has been a very fun Stephen King month and a half. But I am looking forward to getting back to our normal mishmash of episodes that don't really have a theme. Just we like this movie, so we're gonna talk about it.
You know, like I feel that before we started this Stephen King month, one of us was getting a Hummer and we hit an elderly Native American woman with our car and we were cursed to never finish this.
I'm not getting thinner, so maybe I should do that.
Me too, brother.
Oh man, thinner. That's a great one too. Not on my Mount Rushmore, but just a great all around like B movie.
The Curse of the White Man.
Curse White Man from Town. Wasn't that what he called him?
Yep.
Curse of the White Man from Town.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. Well, with it said, John, where can they find you at on the internet?
Well, you can find me over at Instagram and Facebook. And finally, life's been real weird, dear Psychos Nation. So I apologize that it has been a goddamn lifetime. But when you are listening to this, because I think I'm uploading it right after we wrap here, is my Men in Black episode that's only taken like 95 years. Yeah.
Woo!
So, it's finished.
This is where I should put in, or I wish I had like a button that had like a congratulations. Whoa, yeah! I'm not gonna edit that in, but like maybe down the line I should do that.
Yeah. So yeah, that'll finally be out. It's a long one. I'm actually trying to chop it up just a little bit now because it's finished, but I'm like, it's like 17 minutes, and I'm like, I think people are gonna stop watching.
You do chapters, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, just put chapters in.
I'm trying to get it down to like maybe 14 minutes. I'm like, I think I can keep people's attention for 14, but you know.
You underestimate yourself, John. You can keep people's attention for 17 minutes.
There's a point where I have Tommy Lee Jones fart for no reason for a long time. And I even put down at the bottom, I went, I don't even know why I did this.
Because it's a J-Dubs Video Nasty video. That's why. That's the only. There's no other reason. That's it. Okay. Why do you do a lot of things in your videos? Because it's you.
I really wanted to use nothing like a bad case of gas.
I mean, you have to use that somewhere. It's so good. It's so good. I can't wait to watch it. Well, that said, of course, if you have loved this episode, please do me a favor and share it. Share it with your friends, share it with your family. On top of that, if you want to follow us in your favorite podcast app of choice, do me a favor. And right there at the bottom, if you're on our video audience, go to cinemapsychoshow.com/follow. See, it's right there at the bottom there. And you can follow our podcast on any of the podcast apps there. We got them all there. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I think we got Amazon Music, Good Pods. They're all there. Just click a button and boom, you are following us, and you'll get your episodes delivered to your app every week. We can put them out. On top of that, if you are watching us here on YouTube, hey, do me a favor and subscribe to us. Please subscribe to us. Hit the like button. Hit the notification bell so you get notifications, because believe it or not, those things really do help us out in the algorithm when you do that. On top of that, if you love this episode, leave a comment down below. Tell us, do you love Misery? What do you love about it? And how would you handle Hobbling? Me, I'd want to die. But that's just me. And with that said, we will see you next time.
Love you. Bye.